Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Wednesday Night Live. I'm Tanja from Tanja Kraus Horsemanship, and you are joining me. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to straighten up the camera and get myself organized. You are joining me for tonight's episode of Wednesday Night Live, and a little bit of a change of location tonight because all the power's gone out in one side of my house, so we are back to being on the phone and using my phone to record. So hopefully it's all going to go through fine, and I do have power, like obviously the Wi-Fi and everything's got power, so fingers crossed that all that is going to work smoothly for the length of the video tonight. So tonight we're talking about, is he active or reactive? He being the horse. And I just want to clarify first what I mean by active or reactive, and some of the things that active means is that the horse is confident, he's willing, he's balanced, and he's calm. And what I mean by reactive is that he's frightened, spooky, he can be rushing, he can be resistant, and his energy can be up. So I meet quite a few people, I shouldn't say quite a few people, but I meet people along the way where we might be doing a maneuver or an exercise, and it can be a spin, or it could be sideways, or it could be back up, it could be any of those things, and it could be ridden, or it could be online, it could be on the ground, and we'll be doing an exercise and the person will say, oh, my horse is fantastic at that. And they ask the horse to perform the action, and it's, you know, the action's really rushed, and the horse kind of is reactive. You can see that the horse is actually quite bothered, and some of these horses learn to be bothered on a small scale. So sometimes we think of a reactive horse and we think of a horse standing up on its back legs, or we think of a horse snorting, or we might think of a horse being reactive in a very confrontational way, which I'm sure a lot of us have seen at one point or another. And sometimes our horses can be reactive without having all of those signs. Sometimes it's just a simple rushing in the maneuver, and it's not 1 + 1 = 2. I'm not saying that rushing always equals that the horse is reactive. I'm not saying a lack of balance always equals that the horse is reactive. That's not the case, and I don't think that we can really ever say that about anything. I have heard people say that before about a myriad of different topics, and I don't think that we can ever say that, you know, when a horse is rushing, he's anxious, or when a horse is pulling back, he's frightened, or when you can see the white of the horse's eye, he's afraid of something. It's likely, or it's possible, or that could be one of the things, but our horses are amazing, complicated, complex animals, and so I think it's trying to simplify things too much if we're starting to make 1 + 1 = 2 confirmations about things. So we want an active horse, and the reason for that is that when you've got an active horse, the maneuver is repeatable. So what you might find is that with a horse that's reactive, it's slow to start the maneuver. You might feel like you're having to reteach the maneuver often, and it may not have adjustability in it. So it's repeatable. You can build consistency in the maneuver, so you can ask for the horse anywhere, anytime, any place. You can build adjustability into the maneuver, so you can speed it up, you can slow it down, you can ask for 1 step, you can ask for 5 steps, etc., etc. You can refine the movement. So when a horse is active, then you are able to start looking at that maneuver and add refinement into it, like collection or self-carriage, or any of those things that we might be looking for in a refinement of a higher quality of that maneuver. You can't do that when you've got a reactive horse. When you've got a reactive horse, refining the maneuver is going to be quite difficult. We want the horse to be balanced and have good biomechanics in the maneuver. And when you've got a horse that is reactive, you won't get this. You won't get good posture or biomechanics, and you won't get good balance, because whilst ever there's some kind of brace or rigidity in the horse, which comes from mental anxiety or physical posture, and the mental can make the physical happen and the physical can make the mental happen. That's a whole nother issue that we need to talk about. But when we're talking about doing maneuvers, we want to build the horse into doing the maneuver in balance and good biomechanics. Otherwise, we're going to be encouraging poor posture and potentially causing some long-term negative effects on the horse's body. We also want an active horse because it's good for the horse's mental health, and we want an active horse because it's good for the relationship. I'm sure most of us don't want a horse that is reactive or frightened and jumping away from us or doing a maneuver because they're worried about the maneuver or frightened about the maneuver. We want a horse that's actively a willing participant. So how can we tell if we've got a reactive horse versus an active horse? So we've already spoken about it, but I just wanted to lay it out here in the video one after the other. As I mentioned, the horse quite possibly is going to be rushing. So let me clarify. A horse that is rushing can be anxious. A horse that's rushing can be a reactive horse and be reacting in that moment. A horse that is that lacks balance is going to potentially rush as well. Now, sometimes we might have an active horse that is not quite balanced and therefore is going to rush, and so we've still got an active horse that is participating in the maneuver and the rushing is caused by a physical imbalance. Or we've got a reactive horse that is either rushing because they're being reactive, or we've got a reactive horse that lacks balance because of the reactivity, and that's going to be manifested in the horse rushing in that maneuver. So I hope that makes sense, the way that I've laid the two different examples out there. So rushing isn't necessarily a result of only the horse being reactive. It is also a result of a simply imbalanced horse, depending on the maneuver that you're asking the horse for. Number two is that it probably seems like you have to keep teaching the maneuver over and over again, or it will seem like the maneuver is slow to start. So when you've got a reactive horse, quite likely, and as I said at the start, I'm not talking about reactivity in the sense that, we look at reactivity sometimes as big, bold movements where we go, yeah, of course that horse is reactive, because that's, what we've witnessed a lot of the time, those explosive kind of maneuvers. So a horse can still be reactive and not be explosive, or not be explosive in a big, dramatic kind of a way. So when the maneuver is slow to start, what you'll find is that sometimes if the horse is reactive, you'll go ahead and put the cue on and the horse won't do anything, and the horse won't do anything, and the horse won't do anything. And then all of a sudden, the horse is explosive into the movement. So again, when I say explosive, that could be on a scale of 1 to 10, that could be 10 out of 10 explosive, running sideways, head up in the air, all these factors that are the attributes of a reactive horse. Or you could have a 2 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10 where he sort of starts the motion quite quickly, but then there's not many other factors that are indicating to you that the horse is reactive. And this is why I can meet a lot of horses that are reactive where the owners don't think they're reactive, because when I say the word reactive, we get a picture in our mind of this dramatic reactive horse. And what I mean by reactive is anything from, 10 out of 10 to a 2 out of 10, or a horse that is just reacting to the person instead of being a willing, calm, confident participant in the maneuver. So if you've got a horse that's slow to start and then just seems to kind of jump into the maneuver and is lacking balance or a little bit rushing or something like that, then it's possible that you've got a horse that's reacting to your cues, not acting on your cues. If you are big in your cues, it's quite possible that you've got a reactive horse. And what I mean by that is, I meet people that might be doing a maneuver like sideways or back up or something like that, and they say, oh, my horse does that really well, and then they're kind of in beside the horse and we've got hands going or we've got elbows going or the body comes up, and I'm absolutely a advocate and a teacher and a practitioner of using our energy and lifting our life up when we're communicating with our horses. But our energy doesn't mean that it has to be our physical demonstration of what's happening in our body. So hand movements or arm movements, or trying to, if you're doing movements like this, that's kind of trying to, it's almost what I would call posturizing. If you're posturizing towards the horse, you're kind of basically threatening the horse to go backwards, or you're threatening the horse to go sideways. If you're using those posturizing kind of movements, then it's quite likely that you don't have an active horse. It's quite likely that you either have a reactive horse, or if you've got a horse that isn't reacting to you and it is slow to start, and you're sitting there thinking, well, gee, Tanja, I go like this and my horse only takes one step backwards, then what you've created is a dull horse that is not active. He's still not active. He might not be reactive, but he's not an active horse, and it's that active horse that we're looking for. If you've created a dull horse, you've basically taught the horse to ignore all of this posturizing, because nothing follows that posturizing. And I'm not saying to follow that posturizing with something, because then you're going to potentially create an anxious reactive horse. What we want is a horse that is having a conversation with us and responding to us without us having to get big and all that sort of thing. So poor posture in maneuvers. So if the horse has his head up, if he's got his eyes wide, if he's hollow in the back, if he's tense in the maneuver, if he's braced through the shoulders, if he's set in his jaw, any of those things could indicate to you that you've got a horse that is reactive. So any kind of resistance is potentially a horse that is going to be reactive after they have that little bit of resistance. And once they start going into the movement, then you'll probably find that the horse may, demonstrate some of the things we spoke about earlier, like rushing or poor posture or poor balance or poor execution of the maneuver. A reactive horse often doesn't know where its feet are, so they might be able to go sideways, but it's not going to be straight, it's not going to be using the diagonals, it's not going to be balanced, and it's not going to be the dance. The reactive horse is going to be potentially crooked, he's going to be inconsistent with his stride, so it's not going to be a walk 1 2 3 4 or a 2 beat 1 2 1 2. It's going to be 1 2 3 4 2 1. Like, it's going to be rapid and the feet aren't going to be smooth. Okay, so the horse is going to get stuck and he's going to be braced in his maneuver. Any of those things are going to be indicating to you that you've got a reactive horse. A reactive horse is a horse that's just throwing things out to you because he's worried about not having the right answer. So he just starts throwing answers out of his repertoire of things that he's done before, or he's reacting and moving and away from pressure, all because he's looking for you to stop whatever it is that you're doing. So he's looking for you to stop the cue. So a reactive horse is not consistent in the response that he offers you. He's a reactive horse that hasn't learnt what the cue is yet is going to throw different things out. A reactive horse that has figured out what it is that you're asking him for example, in sideways or something like that, is going to conduct the maneuver in a poor way, if that makes sense. An active horse is willingly participating, he's interested, and he's engaged mentally and physically in the exercise. So he's looking at you, he's soft in his body, he's got good posture, he's relaxed, he's calm, he's willing, he's smooth in his feet, and he is just, even when an active horse gets confused, he may slow down, or he may even stop, or he may provide you with the wrong answer, but he's not worried about providing you with the wrong answer. He's just going to provide you with the wrong answer, and then when you keep giving him the cue because he hasn't quite given you the right answer yet, then he's going to just go ahead to his next set of solutions, and he's going to offer you a different solution. So that's how you can tell when you've got a horse that's a nice, active, willing participant. So how can we help a reactive horse? Number one, slow down. You want to slow down in your phases, or your increase in your demand, so your increase in pressure within the cue. You want to ask less of a reactive horse, and you want to wait longer. So asking less means asking for 1 or 2 steps instead of asking for 10 steps. Waiting longer means asking and rewarding those couple of steps, and waiting and watching his body language after he's completed the maneuver, and letting him relax fully and settle into his understanding of that maneuver and that reward. Let him sit in that reward. So slow down, slow your phases, ask less, wait longer. Number 2, set him up for success. So teach the reactive horse quite simple things. Don't confuse him with complicated things just yet. You want to teach him really basic things, maybe a little bit of backup, maybe a little bit of lateral bend, maybe a little bit of forward. It doesn't really matter what you teach him, but it's got to be simple things that are easy for him to understand, so you can over reward him. What you want to do with a reactive horse is celebrate that lateral bend like he's just done a piaffe. You want to say, yes, that's what I wanted, good horse, etc., etc. And don't fuss over him too much, but just let him feel that he's been right, and then he'll start to get confident with presenting you with answers instead of just throwing things at you. So we're trying to create thinking horses, not throwing horses. I don't want horses just throwing things at me. I want him thinking about the cue that I'm applying to his body or not to his body, the cue that's coming from me. I want him assessing what it is that I'm doing, and I want him pulling something out of his repertoire and giving it to me because he thinks that that's the right answer. I don't want him just throwing all of his toys out of the toy box in the hope that I go away. The next one is build the language. So what I find with reactive horses is that they can be cross-trained in different behavior modifications. So out of the 4 different types of behavior modification, often a reactive horse is trained using several combinations of that. And that can really cause a horse to be insecure and inconsistent with understanding the language. So if you were going to combine different behavior modification theories, then I would recommend doing it later on in my advancing horses stage, so you can keep the language consistent and you can keep it keep the horse understanding what language it is that you're using. So there's always an answer. My language is that there's always an answer. There's always a correct answer for my cue. I want you to keep calm. I want him to look for the answer, and he will not be in trouble if he provides me with the wrong answer. I'm simply going to just keep the cue on. I'm just going to keep asking him until he provides the correct answer. I'm not going to increase in my phases or anything like that. I'm just going to keep gently asking him until he thinks about what it is that I'm I'm looking for, because we have to remember that when we're talking to a horse and we're teaching a horse in a cue-based system, he doesn't have the manual. He doesn't know that when I touch you on the ribs here, I want you to go sideways. We're teaching him that. So for me to touch him on the ribs and then change it to, you know, tapping him with a whip, and then change it to clicking, and then change it to lifting up my energy, and then pushing on him, and keep changing the cue, then I'm inconsistent with the language that I'm presenting with my horse, and he is going to struggle to link a maneuver to the cue that I'm asking him to do. So we have to be consistent with the cue set we're using, and we have to be consistent with the behavior modification or the training style that we're using. So I hope that helps in regards to understanding what I mean in regards to an active and reactive horse, understanding why we want an active horse and not a reactive horse, or not a dull horse either. How we can help if we do have a reactive horse, or we feel like we know a reactive horse, how we can help with that situation, and how we can recognize if we've got a reactive horse, how we can assess whether we've got a reactive horse or if we know of a reactive horse, and finally how we can help avoid creating a reactive horse, or how we can help get a horse to change from being reactive into active. So I hope that you enjoyed tonight's Wednesday Night Live. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I will see everyone next week. We've got a newsletter coming out tomorrow. We've got a couple of new courses that are hitting the books tomorrow. If you're in the Cabarita Beach, Byron Bay, kind of northern New South Wales coastal area, I'm going to be up there on the 1st of June weekend doing a building confidence course. So I'd love for you to join me on that. I'm heading out to Capella, which is near Emerald in Queensland. I'm really looking forward to that course. I haven't been to that area before, so I'm really looking forward to that, and I would love for you to join me, or if you know anyone in that area, go ahead and put them in contact with me. But in any case, we've got the newsletter coming out. We'll have hopefully some more YouTube videos will be uploaded, and then next week we've got Q&A Tuesday, and next Wednesday, of course, we've got Wednesday Night Live. So thank you so much for joining me. The replay will be up shortly. Please go ahead and share it with anyone who might be interested. Thanks so much. Good night.